morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of What Does It Take to Get the Right Shot? Today, we are going to talk about the depth of field. What is the depth of field and how does it work? Now, first of all, the depth of field is the distance between your subject and whatever is behind it. As usual, I think that it will be easier to get a sample and try to talk with the samples and try to see together and figure out together what are we talking about. Today we are going to use this picture just because I think that we can see very well what the depth of field is. Now this squirrel was on the rock, which you can see, but you cannot see that right behind the squirrel there are some trees. Why? What happened? Now, when we talk about the depth of field, we need to know that we are talking about two separate things. We can create the depth of field with our lens and or with our aperture. Now, when we talk about aperture, you can see the specific video right below. But let me explain you, talking about the depth of field. First of all, let's start with the lens. When I zoom closer to my subject, let's pretend that our zoom is our eyes. What do we do when we try to see something that is far away and we might don't see it very clear? What we do is we close our eyes, we try to avoid all the distraction and all the light that we have around, and we try to focus in just one point. Now, focusing in just one point, we just avoid everything else. Avoiding everything else, what I do see, it's only what I have right in front of me. And that's why everything behind, it's blurry, because I avoided a lot of light and I just got closer and closer to my subject. Now, I could take this picture in a different way. The wider I will be, the more other things I will have in the picture. I will have more rock, which we don't care right now because he is the subject. I will have trees behind, which we don't want to see. I don't want the risk that you get distracted by anything else than right now the action of the squirrel. The only way to do that is to zoom closer. Now let me show you again. If I zoom closer to you, now I have everything from here to here, but the moment that I zoom closer, this is only what I have in my lens or my eye. So only what I have in front will be on focus, and whatever it's behind, it's blurry. And the further, the more blurry. So this is how the depth of field works. Another way to create a depth of field, it's with the aperture. I'm gonna try to be quick because I have a specific video about that, but let me explain you. If I use a big aperture like a 2.8, my shutter speed, because I have a lot of light through the aperture, my shutter speed will be very fast. If my shutter speed is fast, the camera has less time to think. So the camera will put on focus what is in front, but nothing else, because it doesn't have the time to put anything else on focus because my shutter speed, my mirror, it's very quick. If I shrink the aperture hole, which means I get a higher number, which means a smaller hole, I have less light from the aperture, which means the only way to have more light is through the shutter speed. Having more light through the shutter speed, it means my shutter speed is lower. Lower means that my mirror will work slower. Working slower, I have more time to get more information into it. More information, which means more light, gives more time to the camera to put something else in focus. So the more time that my camera has, the more of focus I have. So f22, aperture 22, I will have everything on focus. So if I was f22 in this picture, well, I use a long zoom, so I will have to match the zoom and the aperture, but f22, I will have more particulars in focus. f2.8, this is only what I have in focus. Now, because I clearly see, that even part of the rock, it's on focus, probably this picture, not probably, I know for sure, it's not 2.8, but it's gonna be 3.5 or even 4, f4 aperture. So this is the depth of field. If I wanna isolate my subject, the depth of field is very important, and I will have to use a zoom. Now, if I use a wide angle, because it's wide, the wider, the more light I have in. The more light I have in, the more I will have on focus, because I'm wider. So when we talk about the depth of field, we talk about a zoom. The more I zoom closer to my subject, the more I have in focus in front and blurry in the back. I can also create a depth of field through my aperture. The lower aperture, which means a bigger hole, the more blurry I have in the back and the more clear I have in front. Usually it's the first third in front is on focus, the 2/3 on the back are gonna be blurry. The smaller hole, which means higher number aperture-wise, the more on focus I will have on the back. So if I want everything on focus, I will have to keep my aperture like 15, 18, or even 22. Now, of course, sometimes you cannot do it, because if you avoid that much light, you need to be in a very, 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 very sunny place, or you need to play with your ISO and shutter speed. If you play higher with the ISO, you will have noise which you don't have overall during the day. Even if your camera is the most recent and brand new camera, at some point you will see the noise that you don't want. So when you cannot play with your aperture, the zoom, it's what is gonna create your depth of field. I think this is all for today. We spoke about the depth of field, which is the distance between your subject and whatever is on the back. And we said, just as a final recap, that we can have it using a zoom. The longer zoom, the closer I get to my subject, the more blurry my back is, and with your aperture. This is it. Thank you so much for following me. I hope I cleared your mind a little bit about the depth of field. I can't wait to see you for my next video. In the meanwhile, I wish you a wonderful day. Have a great day. Bye-bye.